what got you into mental health advocacy work? How did you get into it, and what sort of work are you doing right now?
Well, I came by mental health advocacy. Uh, Honestly, I guess you could say it. It was something I found was really healing as I went through a very traumatic period of my life. After my dad died, it was the entertainer Robin Williams. He died by suicide, and I found myself extremely dysregulated and going through a tough time in my life. I found myself self-medicating using alcohol. I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder,
Hmm.
and I realized something had to give. So one of the things that I found was extremely healing for me was committing to causes associated with mental health. Using my skill set to support organizations, which is very focused around strategy, marketing, organizational
Hmm.
development, supporting mental health initiatives around growing and seeking to break down the stigma associated with mental health.
Gotcha. As other people are navigating this space, maybe for the first time, maybe being overwhelmed by all the options that are at play, do you have any guidance for people that are feeling their way through this space of what they're trying to do and how they're trying to move through whatever pain or difficulties they're struggling with?
Yeah, well, first, the thing that I found helpful for me, and I wouldn't say this might be the best path for everyone, but is I kind of took a diagnostic approach. Why is it I was doing the things I was doing to support myself?
Hmm.
Why was I drinking? Why was I engaging in certain behavior and activity like isolating? And when I started really understanding why I was doing that and developing insight into the symptoms associated with my activity,
Yeah.
I was able to then say, hey, I'm doing this almost as a habit, or I guess in the case of alcohol as an addiction, to manage all these other elements of my life. And then when I actually said, why? Why am I doing this? That helped set an expectation around what else I could do to better support myself. Just to be clear, the lens that I have when it comes to developing, providing mental health support experiences or working with organizations that do that too
Yeah.
is precision support. So I am of the orientation that for any given individual, there's a collection of mental health support experiences, activities, products, whatever, what have you,
Yeah.
that works best for them. It could be prescription medication. It could be meditation. It could be talk therapy. It could be CBT. It could be any number of different activities. But for any given person, there's likely a set that is optimal for them. So that's what I advocate for. The challenge is that often there are communities that have the ethos that there is a pill, there is a solution that will solve all your problems. And I'm heartened to see the change both within the healthcare community, but also in the gestalt, the greater public consciousness, that there's a shift in thinking, that it's not just one thing to solve all your problems. There's a collection or mosaic that can support one in an optimal way. To be clear, I've been actively drinking and active in addiction for many years, even prior to my dad dying
Hmm.
by suicide. It just happened to get to the point where I needed to stop. I realized, I came to the realization that I needed to stop. I probably could have stopped far before that, but
Gotcha.
but it was, my drinking was symptomatic and was very much relating to trying to manage through life. And I think the masculinity elements play a role in that, because I felt that, drinking in the way that I did was very much part of a characteristic of me. It was part of my identity. And there was a masculine element to that.
Hmm.
To stop was to admit defeat, was to lose. And that's something that that in hindsight was not losing. it
Yeah.
was it was actually winning. That's what's so weird about it, is that
Yeah.
you can have these distortions of thinking in a specific mindset that lead you down a certain path.
Yeah. I'm glad you said again, like you thought it was losing, but it was actually winning. And I can imagine I've had my own experiences in this realm of that sort of that breakdown where it feels like you're failing, but it's actually like the exact thing that you need to do. I'll speak for myself. It was like, in those moments where I've felt like I've been broken, uh, and that I've, yeah, like given up and failed. Those are the transformative moments where I'm actually able to sort of take whatever energy that I was using to sort of keep myself in that space, and it moves and shifts into a new direction. And it can be very terrifying, at least for me. Uh, but it's also very liberating to sort of admit those realities that we've been resisting for so long. So I'm glad you brought that up. That like I thought I was losing, but it was actually winning.
Yeah, I mean, when the thing is, when you're mid arc in something, you know, of course, hindsight's 2020. You're looking at the past, saying
Yeah.
woulda, woulda, but it can be hard to really envision the output. Yes, you have goals. You have these big goals, and then these little goals, and it can just feel dire at times.
Yep. There was an old teacher of mine that talked about how when we're in the middle of a story, like things don't make sense because if you ever stop a story in the middle, it's super dissatisfying. So when we judge the middle of our story by like the end of our story, of course we're going to come up short. Like it's not supposed to be finished. Uh, so anyhow,
Well, I think that in part too, for those who are entrepreneurs out there with their businesses and the like, the risk profile associated with doing it versus the lack of stability, and you need to have a spark of madness in it, for lack of a better word, and or lack of a better phrase. And the thing that drives me forward through challenging times is the service component, the fact that you know we have an opportunity to make a difference in people's lives. And yes, it's hard. Yes, it's challenging. Yes, on any given day there's so many different fires that need to be put out. There's the headwinds or the tailwinds of what's going on in the world. There's any number of different things that are happening, and at the end of the day, I need to acknowledge I'm kind of in the middle of things, and providing I continue to do the work that's needed, continue to be good to my friends and family and team, and continue to do what's necessary, then we're putting our best foot forward any given day, putting our best foot forward. And that's really what it comes down to, is like, just give it your best shot and continue doing it and stack those together, because those little wins, they add up. I think the thing that I really needed to identify first was the fear associated with looking inward.
hmm.
That was a blocker for me, is I was fearful and anxious and just said, I can't look inward because I'm not going to like what I see. And, I think fear is inherent in human nature, providing you can understand it. And, in most cases, the fear won't kill you. It's a good, it can be a very helpful thing, but also it can be, especially those who are prone to anxiety and the like, it can be paralyzing. And so when I was able to kind of understand the fear and say, hey, this won't kill me if I go and take a look inside,
Mm.
and I open up the hood of kind of who I am, and you just start piecing things together and say, there's an opportunity here, and you can break down elements like it's like plaque, this emotional plaque that builds up, and you see it, and you're fearful of kind of looking at the different elements of the plaque, and there's a lot of things that is easier to do, and there's things that are sort of harder, and there are things that are really hard, right? And then you just kind of have to go after what makes sense. So I think once I identified the fear and was able to really start acknowledging what I needed to do to kind of, I don't want to say erase the fear, but have it become manageable in my life,
Yeah.
that was extremely helpful.
Gotcha. Yeah, it also reminds me of what you were saying before too, of alongside this fear, there's also this aspect of like, we just do the best that we can. It's not like we're going to understand ourselves completely ever, or even like successfully do some introspection at any given moment. But the more that we're able to just like do our best, look inside and see what makes sense, and what we can make more sense of, the better.
Well, there's days where it might be a little sprint or it might be a marathon, right? And it's just part of the process of learning. If you think of kind of your entire knowledge, your experience as a person, and it's a radar graph, it's a really big radar graph, right? But if you're able to take the things that you want to improve and just push it up, just push it up a little bit, eventually some of the resistance will break down and you're able to learn and push it up even more. And then it gets harder again. And then you can
Right.
push it up further, and you can reduce the fear element. It's like your avatar as a human.
Yes. Yeah. You're leveling up. I love it.
Yeah, no, but you can if you think about that as kind of your experience, and you're able to really identify and improve the things you want to improve, and it can stick, then you're learning. That delta, that change is learnings.
Yeah.
And that's, no one can take that away from you.
Yeah. That's powerful. Mm-hmm.
That gain is yours. So I had to come to that realization.
Well, I just want to take a second and say thanks for just sharing I mean, this is all pretty personal stuff. I know I find it helpful, and I know our audience will. And it's also not, the easiest thing all the time. So thank you for, opening up and sharing with us some of these things. I appreciate it.
Hey, it's my pleasure. It's helpful for me too. It helps me understand more about myself, and hopefully I can show up and help others.
Yeah, it's part of the service.
The main message I would want to share is that service is the path to happiness. Find the service that works best for you, and hopefully there's a path to happiness that will unveil itself from there. That's really the message I want to bring through.
I love that, Zach. I love it. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us on the I Know a Guy podcast, and we hope to have you back in the future, Zach. This has been great.
Thanks, Zach. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome.